Good evening. We're calling the Planning and Zoning Commission to order. Brian, do you mind calling the roll?
Sure. Ms. Lankowski,
Here.
Ms. Tabashnik,
Here.
Mr. Jones,
Here.
Ms. Langalis,
Here.
Mr. Schulman,
Here.
and Mr. Bryce.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Both Anna and Diana are seated for all the applications tonight. We will actually, before we get started, one of our applications, 2025-79 SPR Lofts M7 LLC 101-201 Merit 7, is not presenting tonight. They've asked for an extension until the February 4th meeting, if I recall correctly.
18th.
18th. Okay, thank you. Until the meeting on the 18th. So we will not be hearing that application tonight. So our first application is a public hearing, 2025-89 special permit, RMS 394 West Ave LLC, 370 West Avenue, District 1, Block 8, Lot 12. Special permit for the installation of backlit cornice signs, public hearing, report, and recommended action. This is a public hearing. A little bit later, I'll introduce how members of the public can participate. But the structure of this is that the applicant will have a chance to present first, and then the public will have an opportunity to speak. And after everyone from the public has had a moment to speak, the applicant will have a chance to respond. So with that, who is representing this application this evening? Hi, Attorney Suchi. Do you mind starting your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Suchi, a partner at Carmody, Torrance, Sandak, and Hennessy, 1055 Washington Boulevard in Stamford. We represent the developer and owner of the property at 370 West Avenue, and that is RMS 394 West Avenue LLC. We're before you tonight with a special permit application in connection with two cornice signs that we propose to install on the south and west side of the structure, the mixed-use structure that is now completed on West Avenue. Just some housekeeping. The application for special permit was filed on December 5th. Neighbors were notified of the submission by certificate of mailing on December 11th, and that certificate was returned to staff and should be in the permanent file. Neighbors within 100 feet of the property were notified of tonight's public hearing by certified mail return receipt requested on January 6th. And those domestic green return receipt cards and any letters that were returned to us as undeliverable were delivered to staff today, and those should be part of the file. Lastly, two signs were erected on the property, one on West Avenue and one on Maple Street, in accordance with your regulation on January 6th to advise those in the public of tonight's public hearing. So the property is at 370 West Avenue, District 1, Block 8, Lot 13. It is Zone CD4. Existing conditions, and if I may impose upon Mr. Baker, if you could raise just one of the signs, just to give an example of what we're looking at. Construction is complete with respect to this mixed-use development. It has 204 apartments, 37 studio, 101 bedrooms, 67 two-bedroom. There are bike racks, EV charging stations, an outdoor pool, 33,000 square feet of recreation area, 260 parking spaces. So we are before you with special permit, and this comes on the heels of an application for text amendment that we submitted to this commission, in which this commission approved in November, to allow cornice signs in the CD4 and the CD3C zone under certain narrow restrictions. And those limitations, restrictions relate to the number of signs, maximum of 2. Height of the sign has to be up at the cornice area. Square footage of the sign is limited to 1 linear foot per building frontage. The cornice signs can only be in the CD4 and CD3C zone. Structures must be 4 stories in height to be eligible to erect cornice signs. The commission, when it reviewed the application in November and made its recommendations and took action, also decided that a special permit would be appropriate for cornice signs. And as you know, a special permit application carries with it a public hearing that is mandatory. Hence the reason we are before you for the signage. So the signage that is proposed, as I said before, there's one proposed on the south side of the structure, and that would be the the one that you're looking at right now. This faces generally I-95. The sign's 4 feet high, 13 feet long, generally 54 square feet in size, backlit, and the number of nits is 200, which meets the limitation that you established when you adopted the regulation in November. Same size sign, height, square footage, and illumination is proposed for the side of the building that faces Route 7 connector. And this is the image that you have. This is the west side of the structure facing the Route 7 connector. So many of the standards of review that we would typically go through with you tonight really aren't applicable, such as density of the building, open space, landscaping, traffic, things of that nature. They just don't apply since the structure is already constructed. But several of the standards of review do apply. One is, there should not be any adverse impact from noise, odor, fumes, dust, or artificial lighting. As indicated before, the lighting proposed for the two scribe cornet signs would not exceed the maximum 200 nits as established in the regulations. And the other standard of review signs are of a sign and design. They're in harmony with the neighborhood. And we propose to you that the two proposed cornice signs are exactly that. They're limited, they are tasteful, they're not overdone, and they meet the requirements and regulations as you adopted in November. That is the long and short of this application before you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have and take any time later to respond to public commentary.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Attorney Suchy?
And thank you, Brian, for screen sharing those for me. Thank you.
Go ahead, Harvey.
I don't see a full site plan in the special permit application. Can you explain or show which direction the sign, like ideally from a top-down sense, like which side the signs face, so we can see what is looking at the sign?
Sure. One sign would be on the south elevation, and that's the side of the building that if you're traveling on Route 1, you're coming from Connecticut Avenue, you come underneath the Route 7 connector, you come to the light at the intersection of West and Route 1 where Stepping Stones Museum is in front of you. To the left would be the south elevation. You would see one sign on that south elevation. The west elevation is around the corner facing the Route 7 connector. Those are the two. There would not be a cornice sign on the elevation facing West Ave or one on the elevation facing Maple Street.
Okay, so yeah.
Thanks, Brian. The south
thanks,
Elevation Brian. Is the narrower of the building fronts, and it's toward the bottom of the screen where the cursor is right now. And the actual location is in that corner, closer to where the entrance to Stepping Stones Museum is. The west elevation is on the left of the screen, and the cornice sign is proposed on that elevation.
They're both facing extremely busy thoroughfares.
Yes.
Is my summary here. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Sure.
Are there other questions for Attorney Suchy? All right, Attorney Suchy, do you have anything else before we open it up to public comment?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will now turn to public comment. For those who wish to speak, you will only have one opportunity to speak. And while there is no limit on how long you may speak, we ask that you are concise. This ensures that your points are not lost and others have time to speak as well. This portion is not a dialogue. The applicant will respond to all of the comments at the end. We ask that you are polite and that you start with your full name and address. Brian, do you mind sharing how folks can participate?
Sure. For anyone from the public, if you'd like to speak, you can use the raise your hand tool now. It's located at the bottom of your screen. You'd click that once. And if you're dialed in on a phone, you can hit *9. And with that, we have Diane Cece.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you so much. Good evening. I have a few questions and comments regarding this application. And hopefully, I know it's not a dialogue or question and answer, but hopefully staff and or the applicant can answer the questions. My concern with this has to do with, is really twofold, or maybe three. One having to do with what many of us residents see as both sign pollution and light pollution within the community. Not unique to Norwalk. I think it's pretty much everywhere. And I believe when I first saw this application before you, one of the justifications that Attorney Suchi spoke to was wayfinding as one of the justifications for having this. And I'm a little confused by that. I'm not sure if that means in terms of someone trying to literally wayfinding, trying to find the building, but in this day and age of Waze and GPS and every other tool, I'm not sure that a lit up sign at night would be necessary. One of my other questions, and along with that, is that I think the city, either maybe not formally, but informally, has adopted some of the standards of the national standard for dark skies, and increasing any type of light, albeit what seems to be low light level for this. I don't think this is the way that we want to go. One of the questions I have for staff is how many, if any, of the other buildings in the West Avenue and Wall Street area have cornice lighting at this height, or any? And if you approve this tonight, on what grounds would the commission have to deny another special permit application in this area for similar cornice signs where everyone is going to want to have them? I believe the applicant also said that they would not be agreeable to having timed lights for this. I think one of the commissioners asked this at their preview. So that would suggest that whatever this lighting is on both sides would be completely dusk to dawn, and it would be on all night. And I'm not sure if that makes sense either. So I think it would be setting a precedent. And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to read my chicken scratch here. I think that either staff or Attorney Suchi just mentioned that this would be allowed in both the CD3 and the CD4 zones, but still as a special permit. And again, I'm concerned with the setting a precedent where it may not exist today. And I'll close with something that probably Mr. Kleppen and Brian Baker will get a kick out of, but I'm a little surprised actually that this comes before your commission as a special permit for something as lighting on the side of a building. Although I'm opposed to this, when there are, medium-sized multifamily developments now that under our code don't even require a special permit. But I'm glad that this did, because it gave me an opportunity to speak as part of the legal hearing. So those are my comments. I hope you take them into account from the noise and light pollution, also the precedent it may be setting, and the concern that once you approve this, if you're inclined to do so, I'm not sure that you have any grounds to deny any other application. And I think that every other applicant would be seeking possibly to do this. Thank you.
Thank you.
If anyone else would like to speak, you can use the raise your hand tool. It's at the bottom of your screen. You click that once. And if you're dialing on the phone, you could hit *9. Seeing nothing further, Mr. Bryce.
Okay, thank you. With that, we'll close the public participation component of the hearing. Attorney Suchi, do you mind responding to the public comment?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few things. As you'll recall from the application for text amendment back in November, the reason it was brought to your attention was that cornice signs had been allowed in various business zones with the previous zoning regulations. For whatever reason, those cornice signs were removed from the current code, and it's when you adopted the new code in 2023, became effective in 2024. So as we mentioned back in November, many of the cornice signs that exist today became legally non-conforming. This is very similar, almost identical to the language that was in the prior code. It limits the number of stories that upon which a building can erect a cornice sign. It must be at least a 4-story building. There are limitations on lighting intensity, which was not part of the code before. It limits the number of signs. And it also reflects what exists today. For example, Waypoint has a cornice sign directly across the street on its buildings. I think there are some buildings that may be that you may see cornice signs coming to you for approval, but that was the reason that commission decided a special permit was necessary. One, because it wanted to be aware of comments and concerns like Ms. Cece about impact to neighborhoods, particularly impact to residential neighborhoods and residences. That's why you imposed a special permit requirement, whereas no other signage in the code requires a special permit. I think my client would like to see these signs on their building. Number one, it identifies the building, and I do understand that there is wayfinding and there are ways and all sorts of ways to get around, but it's a landmark building. It identifies the gateway to West Avenue. The signs are done in a way that they are limited in lighting intensity. That was a design that we spoke to you about with the text amendment and worked with staff to come up with an intensity that was appropriate. I think they're appropriate for the building. They're necessary for the building. They reflect what other buildings similar size have had in the past. It treats this building similarly to the others. And it's a reflection by way of special permit of what this commission deemed appropriate in terms of providing the public with the opportunity to be heard and weigh in, which is what Ms. Cece did. It meets all the requirements of your regulation. It is at the right number, the right height, the right square footage. The lighting intensity is appropriate based upon the regulation. It complies with that. And I don't see any issue that these signs will create from a dark sky perspective, lighting intensity, or a neighborhood impact perspective. I have nothing else to add. If you have any questions of me, I'm happy to answer them.
Are there any questions for Attorney Secchi? All right. Attorney Secchi, do you have anything else?
No, Mr. Chair, I've concluded. Thank you.
Great, thank you. At this point, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion for this application?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, is that a motion to approve? Tammy?
I'm sorry, was that what?
Oh, is that a motion to approve?
Yes, sorry, a
Oh.
motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a
Thank you.
second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Harvey. Brian or Steve, do you mind pulling up the resolution? Are there any discussion or modifications to this resolution? All right. Hearing none, Brian, do you mind calling the roll?
Sure. Let's start with Mr. Schulman. You're muted, Mr. Schulman. Sorry.
Apologize for that. Yes.
Ms. Tabashnik,
Yes.
Ms. Lankowski,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Ms. Langalis,
Yes.
and Mr. Bryce.
Yes.
All right, that is unanimous.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I hope you have a quick evening tonight and all stay safe during the weekend snowstorm. But thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Our next application is, that ends our public hearings for this evening. And our next application is 2025-93 site plan review for TCT Enterprises, 542 Westport Ave, District 5, Block 8, Lot 6. Change of use within portion of existing building from retail to commercial recreation establishment. Report and recommended action. Who tonight is representing 542 Westport Ave?
That would be me, Mr. Chairman.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Holsworth. Is that right?
Holsworth. Yep.
Holsworth, great. Do you mind sharing a presentation tonight of the application?
Yes, I would. I can start sharing. Before I start sharing, I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Brett Holsworth. I'm a civil engineer with Redness and Mead at 22 First Street in Stamford, Connecticut, on behalf of the applicant TCT Enterprises, who would be the developer of this application. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Do you see the aerial?
It's coming up. There it is.
Okay. All right. The property is 542 Westport Avenue in Norwalk. I'm sure you're all familiar with the site, but it's a multi-tenant building occupied by the AMC Theater, a massage spa, the Edge Fitness on the lower level. There is some medical office on the second floor. Total overall, there's over 150,000 square feet of commercial space on this property. There are some vacancies on the property. There are some small spaces where Carter's Oshkosh used to be, and there's also office spaces available on the second floor. But most notably, there is a large vacancy where the former Bed Bath & Beyond was vacated in 2023. So that space is about 47,000 square feet of retail space. So overall, with the whole property included, there's about 69,000 square feet of vacant, unused retail space, only 55% occupied. So the tenant or the landlords are looking for tenants to fill those vacancies. Since Bed Bath & Beyond left, there were some plans to have Bob's Store and EMS come in, but unfortunately both of those went bankrupt. So the landlord is still actively trying to court a number of other tenants to fill those spaces. So this application is to occupy a portion of that retail space with a children's indoor play space. The square footage is about 16,000 square feet. This includes, let me back up for just a moment. The parcel is located in the CD3C zoning district that allows for a commercial recreational establishment as a principal use via site plan review when it's over 10,000 square feet. So here we are for that purpose. This is the property. There's a big office, there's the big space, there's a lot of surface parking around it. There is a 2-level parking garage in the rear of the property, so a lot of parking. We have an existing conditions survey showing all the parking. So the site plan, this is the portion of the property that is being renovated. It's going to be interior only, with only the only exterior modifications would be adding a few windows to the south side of the property. I have Tommy Chu from TCT Enterprises who can speak more about the business and the plan for the actual space. We also have the architect Bill Achilles who can answer any of the questions about the design. But before I pass it over to them, I wanted to mention the parking. So we did a parking analysis for the entire property with all the tenants, and we came up with a parking count. We used conservative numbers using total floor area as opposed to the usable floor area that the regulations usually specify. And we put together a chart that includes all the spaces. And the existing required parking spaces is 349 spaces. The total spaces on site is 688. So currently there's a surplus of 339 spaces. So clearly this is a site that has a lot of parking. and can accommodate a large amount of change. Now, commercial recreation, in terms of the parking requirement, when it's a smaller recreation, it was one space per 500 square foot. That is the same exact number as what the retail is. So, kind of on paper, it would be a even change. We did have our client did look at the programming of the specific area, and they came up with a peak demand of 70 parking spaces. That would be a Saturday morning or a Saturday afternoon when there's a lot of kids who would want to play in that play space, and about 70 families total. So clearly, even if you add the 70 to the commercial recreation for that space, there's still a surplus of over 300 parking spaces on this campus. So clearly, it's something that can accommodate the space. Now, one of the staff reports that Brian put together had a recommendation regarding the parking. So there is a crosswalk between the parking garage and the space being occupied. And he came up with a really good recommendation of blocking off 2 spaces right next to that crosswalk. I'll kind of zoom in here. Now, that is, for pedestrian safety, it just gives a little bit more sight lines. People coming in with balloons and party gifts and stuff, it's just, it makes a lot of sense. So we're on board with that. We spoke with the landlord, and they're okay with that, assuming that there's no, provisions that their lease would prohibit removing those 2 spaces. But as I said, the overall parking spaces is way over surplus. So we're willing to accommodate that change. So the space is a children's indoor play space. It has a jungle gym, toddler areas, basketball hoops, party rooms. It's meant for an open space, kind of free play facility. It is for birthday parties, and it might have toddler classes. And with that, I would turn it over to Tommy Chu, who can speak more about the actual business and the development.
Yeah, Brett, I'm going to jump in. This is Tristan Toomey. Tommy's in an area where you're just going to hear a lot of background noise, so I'm just going to jump in for him, if that's all right for the committee. Yeah, just as Brett had noted, the objective here is to build a thoughtfully designed indoor play space for kids and their families to come from Norwalk and the surrounding Fairfield County towns. It's really crafted to invite exploration and let the kids just really have fun and run around and do what they have to do what they do to burn out energy. As noted, there'll be a large playground area in the facility. There'll also be a handful of ballrooms, a basketball area, a fairly large ball pit, as well as a couple of other rooms, one being what we're calling kind of a dark room, which is just, when it's all getting really crazy, there's an area that you can always go to and just kind of calm ocean noises and just relax and cool down. And then another area that will probably be like magnet tiles or building blocks, those kind of things to let kids just kind of build what they can think of and just work from there. Additionally, there'll be, a couple of areas, some STEM areas with, the tubes where the scarves fly through, a lot of different things going on, but really it's meant to be a space where kids and family can come, feel safe, enjoy the area, enjoy the space in toys and playground areas, and really just have a fun time for a few hours and have a couple of birthdays there as well.
If I may, what ages is this intended for?
It's intended for likely about 2 years to 8 years old, but I'll tell you, the ball pit area is going to be large enough that I think it can even go older, and I know that there'll probably be adults that'll be hanging out in there as well with the kids.
Thank you.
Anna?
Sorry, Anna, did you have a question? I think you might still be on mute. I think I
I
heard
was
you
trying to
also
get my
trying to
hand down and then I did something else. I'm so sorry. I know these places have different sort of payment models, membership, drop-in, etc. Do you know if you have any tiers or discounts for lower income families? If you have an EBT card, anything like that?
So we do, our plan right now is to do drop-in, membership, and then birthdays as kind of the three main line of revenues for this. We have not considered the like EBT or things like that, but it's definitely something that we will now put on our radar. To be honest, I just don't think it's something we had considered. So Tommy and I will take that back.
We have a great kid museum in Norwalk Stepping Stones, and they have a discount for memberships with an EBT or drop-in with an EBT that is really helpful for folks with small children who use an indoor place to take them.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea to include.
Are there other questions for the applicant? Mr. Holsworth, do you have other items you'd like to present on or share tonight?
I don't believe so. This is pretty straightforward. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but we're not proposing any site plan changes. Nothing to the exterior of the building besides the windows that we talked about. There may be in a future some signage, but we know that the signage has its own animal, so we'll probably be coming back at some point to discuss signage, but that's not part of this application. So yeah, with this, I think we would conclude our presentation.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant? All right. Is there a motion for this application?
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Anna. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tammy. Brian or Steve, do you mind pulling up the resolution? One question I had on this was I noticed the parking spaces were mentioned as a whereas instead of a condition. It sounds like the applicant wants to implement them. I'm not sure if we want to move it from the whereas into a condition, but
My only concern is if I don't want to hold up their CO in case for something that's not in their control to do. That's my one concern.
I see. Okay. Are there any other comments or modifications? Yeah, go ahead, Tammy.
One question for Brian. If at some point, if this business is no longer there, could this space just go back to the regular retail space that it was before?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments, questions, modifications to this resolution? All right. Brian, do you mind calling the roll?
Sure. Ms. Langalis?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Lankowski?
Yes.
Mr. Schulman?
Yes.
Ms. Tabashnik?
Yes.
And Mr. Bryce?
Yes.
All right, that's unanimous.
Great. Thank you for your presentation this evening.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next application is 2025-91 POCD, Planning and Zoning Commission, amendment to the 2019 to 2029 Plan of Conservation and Development to adopt the Art and Cultural District Plan dated 2025 as an addendum to the POCD, preliminary review and referral. Who is speaking to this item tonight?
Hi, everybody. I'm Sabrina Godesky. I'm the Director of Business Development and Tourism for the City of Norwalk. I don't know a lot of you, so it's nice to meet you all for the first time. And for people I've met before, hello again. I'm also staff to the Arts and Cultural Commission, which is why I'm kicking things off tonight. But we also have a presentation prepared for you all. Martin Cohen and David Saunders is here, both from the Cultural Planning Group, who was our consultant for this project. So I'll throw it over to them for the presentation. And at the end, if you guys have any questions, either the consultants or myself should be able to answer them. So thank you for your time tonight.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina. David's going to share we have a brief PowerPoint just to go through with some highlights of what we're going to be talking about this evening, and sharing some specific findings from the plan, as well as the highlights from the plan and the requested update to the POCD. So David, if you can put the slide up. Great. So why don't we go ahead and go to the second slide? We all see this beautiful view here. So what we'll do is we'll just give you a quick overview and an introduction to the planning process. And one of the important things that we want to share with you is the community engagement process that we undertook and the findings that came out of that, and how that elevated itself and manifested itself through the Arts and Culture Plan and its relationship and why it's connected to the POCD conversation this evening, an opportunity for some discussion and questions and next steps. I'm going to actually turn it to David to go on to the next slide, which is really beginning to talk about the planning process, the engagement, and the findings.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to have the chance to present to you this Arts and Cultural District Plan, which we've been working on for about a year now. We really do just have a few brief slides, but we'd like to start with the planning process overview. As you can see from this slide, we did a combination of in-person discussion groups and interviews with stakeholders in the Arts and Cultural District and in the arts and culture community in Norwalk. We had a series of public meetings and open forums targeted to artists and creatives, and a business mixer at Space 67. We also did a resident survey, which generated 390 responses. So the total participation was somewhere between 500 and 600 people in the development of this plan. It was iterative. We started last spring and continued through the fall. And I want to also emphasize the steering committee's role in this process. Sometimes steering committees are a formal requirement, but it's something you put up with. This was exactly the opposite. These were passionate and committed and sometimes argumentative stakeholders, and their fingerprints are all over this plan. There was intelligent, deep discussion. I think we met 4 or 5 times. Many of their ideas shaped this plan. If you would like more detail, the steering committee roster and the listing of the specific discussion groups and so forth is on page 6 of the plan document. It may be a different PDF page number in your meeting packet, but the plan page is 6. So what did we learn from all this engagement? So top priorities were an arts and cultural district and an arts and culture plan that promotes connectivity through arts and culture in what is a large geographic area. Also, there was a lot of attention paid to infrastructure, acknowledging that it was important to have mechanisms to make people feel clean and safe within the district, to be able to find parking easily, to have lighting as a part of that safety, feeling of safety, and to generally make people feel comfortable and also able with wayfinding and other elements be able to navigate their way through a big cultural district area. Equally important was using the Arts and Culture District and this plan to support artists, arts and cultural organizations, and creative businesses and entrepreneurs Historic preservation, of course, is a major part of your community. We had historic preservation representatives on the committee and were able to incorporate that into the plan. And lastly, many of the stakeholders on the steering committee ran organizations themselves or had had that experience in the past. There was lots of thought and attention into the management capacity because cultural districts are not successful without a good infrastructure, sustainable funding, and the capacity to deliver programs and meet community expectations. There were some tensions that arose in the planning process, things that need to be balanced because they involve trade-offs. The first is the geographic scope of the district. The Arts and Cultural District spans a total of 4.5 miles from north to south. It starts up above Wall Street. It progresses south through West Avenue, through Waypoint, past Washington Street, and through Sono. So it's a big area. It also encompasses a number of overlay zones and historic preservation districts, which bring the possibility of resources and other organization to this large geographic area. The second area of tension was development versus displacement. We're all familiar with this. Gentrification is very much a mixed blessing. And you can see that in these areas of Norwalk already. There has been displacement, there has been lots of development, and it's a balance that will need to be continually managed and dealt with as the cultural district is implemented. And lastly, you know, the folks on the steering committee are all Norwalk residents. They felt it was very important that the district not just be a tourism attraction, but that it maintain the authenticity and activities that would be important to residents and to residents of various ages and families and children as well. But on the other hand, it is a draw for tourism, and there are events and activities that already draw people to Norwalk with tremendous potential to augment that. So let me pass the baton back to Martin now. He can talk you through the high points of the plan itself and its relationship to the POCD.
Great. Thank you, David. Before I move on to the next slide, you know, I'd just like to also point out that this plan is building on work that, which also connects to parts of the POCD, which began with going to the state of Connecticut for certification and recognition of a formal arts district that David just described. And that did occur. That was a staff-driven process, an internal-driven process that was successful. And once that was in place, that set the stage or created the platform to think about how do we support the creative community? How do we look at economic development? How do we look at the issues within the very large footprint of what is the Arts and Cultural District as designated by the state of Connecticut? And what does that mean in terms of an arts plan for the city of Norwalk? And if you want to go to the next slide, David, here. You know, so at the heart of our discussion is the agenda item tonight, which is amending the POCD in relation to the arts plan and updating it accordingly. And what we see is that numerous sections and elements of the POCD are connected to the process and the resulting plan. Here, we see two of those specific sections taken from the POCD, the vision, which we see it here at the top, and second is the priority strategy. If we look at the vision, the aim is for Norwalk to be at the center of art, culture, and entertainment in the region. That began with the development and the establishment of an arts district and all the elements that would come with that. And the strategy and the direct call to action was development of this plan. So the findings from community engagement and the process, briefly, that David shared with you a moment ago, are strongly supporting and affirming these elements and directly related to them. Immediate implementation of the strategy called for developing the arts and culture plan, so that is now in front of you, of course. All of this supports a wide range of the challenges and opportunities identified throughout the POCD, from historic preservation, promoting heritage, focusing on placemaking, economic development, and sustainability. The plan builds on numerous assets throughout the core of Norwalk, and this includes a focus on the Arts District as the anchor. It directly aligns with the recommendation in the POCD of supporting a healthy and livable community, specifically expanding community-centered arts and culture and economic development. Next slide, David, please. So the plan itself, where are we starting from? What is, what, so to speak, what is the raw material? What are the recommendations? What are the core elements of the plan? And here you see the 5 core sections really that make up the arts and culture plan. All of these relate to different parts of the POCD and to arts and culture in general in Norwalk. Programming and activation, right? We heard a lot of this, of the interest in events, activation that's happening across the entire length of the district, public art, street activation. Signature festivals was something we heard a great deal about from the general public. We saw this throughout the survey as well. This was a strong element. We know that a key element of any arts and culture plan and success of the district is in how it supports artists, how it supports the creative community. And this includes in the plan, talking about funding, talking about work opportunities, affordable spaces. And this includes live workspaces, the visibility of the arts, culture, and entertainment, the things that are happening within Norwalk. That brings in tourism, that brings in other elements. And it's also about how do we support arts and culture, because when there's visibility, when there's participation, that helps support artists as well. And of course, the leadership in building the capacity of the arts, the individual artists, of the creative entrepreneurs, of the arts nonprofits that are within the district and throughout Norwalk. Marketing and branding, it's really about establishing a unified identity and all the elements that go into creating a space that it would be a designated district, marketing it, branding it, the wayfinding, the promotion, the elements that go into that. And economic development, again, is adjacent to all of this, which is how do we create foot traffic, how do we create business supports, both small business support, larger business support, how do we think about the workforce retention, those who are in the district, those who perhaps want to establish small businesses. And of course, tourism, how are we bringing people not just from Norwalk, but from around the district or to the district from other places to come to a place that they would begin to recognize they want to participate in. And lastly, as David mentioned, we heard a lot of high priority around connectivity and unification, bridging the I-95 divide, linking the sub-districts that are within the large footprint, assuring that there's transportation and a flow of activity that happens throughout. While still really while there's unification, there's also a strong interest in the 3 sub-districts and the unique elements or the unique character that each of those 3 sub-districts bring within the larger arts and culture district. David, you want to go to the next slide, please? So the primary reference in the POCD is Chapter 6, Goals 2 and 3. We see those here in front of us, both Strategies A and B for Goal 2 and Strategies A for Goal 3. And in addition to those, we also can look in the POCD and see that in Chapter 4, it refers to adaptive reuse of historic buildings, and this may include the Palace Theater. We see that's identified down in Sono, facilitating artist housing, live work spaces. In Chapter 4, which is not up here on the slide, we also know that, the housing strategy, maintaining a variety of neighborhood types and housing choices, which connects to artist live workspace and other kinds of units. So what we actually see here throughout the POCD is several elements of the arts and culture plan and the arts and culture district that are directly related. Next slide, David. And that brings us to the amendment, which is essentially updating the language, going from developing it to just showing that it has been created, and we move to implementation. And you see what's crossed out there from the original language to the updated language. Next slide, final slide. And so the next steps we have is following, should you adopt the amendment this evening, the next step would be going to the Economic Community Development Committee for presentation and public comment, and that's slated for February 5th, and then they would go for a vote on that on March 5th, and then presentation for adoption to the Common Council on March 10th. So that's the slides presentation. We can go to any questions you have, any discussion you might have this evening. And we can put the slides up again if you have any specific questions there.
Thank you. Appreciate that. A quick question to Stephen Bryan. I know that this is a preliminary review and referral. So tonight's action will be referring it. Who are we referring it to?
So referring it out to council so that that's kind of on their radar. Ultimately, you guys will have to hold a public hearing, and maybe you get to see the same presentation all over again for the benefit of the public. But it was such a good presentation, I think it's worth seeing a second time. So, but yeah, that you'll need to do the formal adoption process, once council's gone through theirs.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions about this proposed amendment? All right. Well, thank you for the presentation tonight, and appreciate the sharing the detail about the plan as well. It was good to take a look at it earlier today, so thank you. Do you have anything else about the proposed amendment?
Not from our end. Just this was a wonderful process. I think, David and I, as the consultants who were brought in, really see the extraordinary opportunity that the Arts and Culture District brings to elevate Norwalk. And it really directly rates the vision in the POCD around arts and culture is extraordinary. And from our work nationally, it's really exciting to see this happen.
I'm glad to hear that.
I would only add that, the plan of conservation and development is a very long-term, a very expensive plan. And it's always rewarding to see something move into implementation like this arts and cultural plan. And the last thing I would say is that we've gotten to know Sabrina and her staff over the past year and work with them quite closely. So they've been a wonderful team to work with, but we also have great faith in handing off the plan to them to now begin all the work of implementation.
Wonderful. Steve or Brian, what type of motion is needed here? Is it a motion to refer to Common Council?
Yeah, per 8-23.
Great. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Wonderful. Is there a second? Thank you, Harvey. Any discussion about this motion? All right. I think we can do this with a show of hands. All right. All those in favor? Indicate. All right. That's unanimous. I'll call abstentions and against just in case. Anna, that was a vote yes. Is that right? Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Wonderful. Thank you for the presentation tonight and look forward to the public hearing.
Great. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next application is 2025-90 SPR 200 Connecticut Ave LLC, 200 Connecticut Ave, District 5, Block 64, Lot 42. Proposed interior renovations to convert 3 office floors to 35 residential units. Report and recommended action. Who is representing 200 Connecticut Avenue this evening?
Good evening, Chairman Chapin. I'm Michael Losasso with Antonazi Associates, and I'll be presenting the application this evening on behalf of 200 Connecticut Ave LLC.
Thank you, Mr. Losasso. Do you mind beginning your presentation?
Not at all. Let me just also mention that I'm joined tonight by Stephen Hennebree. He's a senior project architect with our company, and also a member of the development company. Vladimir Vidan is with us as well to answer questions.
Thank you.
Let me share my screen, and I'll go through the application itself. Bear with me one second. So the property is located at 200 Connecticut Avenue, District 5, Block 64, Lot 42, and it's in the Zone CD 3C. Sorry, 3C. I have a Google Earth image that I think helps describe the facility. This is a existing multi-story business use located on Connecticut Avenue, and as the application stated, the upper floors of this existing facility will be converted or being proposed to be converted for use for multifamily residential. There are 7 stories plus a penthouse, and it's the 6th, 7th, and penthouse levels that are being proposed for conversion. I will now switch to the floor plans. Oh, I'm sorry. As part of our submission, we did present data that we had on file. There is no intention to modify the exterior site, nor are there plans to modify the building exterior. So from outward purposes, the facility will remain the same. We submitted, in addition to a historic site plan, also a utility plan as part of the submission. And then we have floor plans that were generated. This is a rendered plan of the 6th floor level. The blue spaces represent 2-bedroom units. The blue-green color represents single-bedroom units, and the red color are units proposed for affordable housing. We have a total of 35 units. Of those, 4 of which will be identified as affordable, both 2-bedroom and single-bedroom alternatives. On the next level up, the 7th level, the positions of those affordable units differ, though the configuration of the basic layouts are very similar. I'll mention also that at the 6th and 7th levels, there are a total of 8 1-bedrooms and 8 2-bedrooms. That's the same from both levels. And the level that differs slightly is the penthouse level, which is comprised of 3 2-bedroom units only. I want to also mention the parking. We have several plans here that describe the existing parking. It's a multi-level parking structure that's built underneath and below the existing business use. There are a total of 313 spaces for the facility. We've calculated that based on the residential requirement on the zoning regulation table 4.3.12 B-1, that we require 1.3 spaces per dwelling unit. That calculates at 45.5, or rounding up to 46 spaces required for parking. We've also accounted for the balance of retail space, which is 1 per 330 square feet of usable space. I have to admit, we didn't delve deeply into what the reference for usable space is, but assumed conservatively that approximately 85% of that floor plate would be considered usable. We're assuming we would exclude things like circulation or interior walls and partitions, floor space, things of that nature. I think 85% is more than conservative, but at that calculation, we would require 240 spaces for the balance of the square footage on the 1st floor up to the 5th floor. That brings us to a total of 286 required parking spaces, which is still well within the net 313 spaces currently available for the facility. I'll mention that after submission of our initial site plan review, we did also follow with the traffic study. I will summarize this quickly by saying that there does not appear to be any negative impact with the proposed modification of the upper levels to residential. In fact, I think it reduces the travel for all but the weekend. We did actually receive comments back from a number of the city departments, and there are some specific questions, particularly from WPCA, that we do need to address. We have communicated with the civil engineer and are obtaining quotes for monitoring of the sanitary sewer discharge for the facility. There was also a request for us to verify whether the parking structure has drains. They are equipped with drains, and so we understand that there would be a need to introduce an oil water separator to mitigate the possible infiltration of petroleum into the storm sewer. The monitoring that is requested has not yet been implemented. Again, we're in the process of obtaining proposals for that. And I think that captures the overall summary of our submission. I'm happy to open it up to any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Lasasso? Go ahead, Tammy.
Hi. Thank you for the presentation. I'm curious about the elevators. Will the residential section have its own exclusive elevators and entrances?
Get back to the floor plan. I don't anticipate adding or modifying the existing elevators. Currently, there are 3 that serve the building. And Vladimir, I'm not sure if you can address this, whether there was an intention to relegate one of the elevators or more of the elevators specifically for residential use.
Yes, if I may, this is Alexander Gorovich. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
So the one elevator would be specifically reserved for residential purposes only. The 2 elevators will be serving commercial spaces, and the building will have a full-time concierge / doorman who would be directing traffic, but lobby will be shared by both portions of the building, but one elevator would be totally dedicated to residential.
Thank you.
I have a question for Steve or Brian about the usable space that was brought up before. Do you guys know offhand what the definition is for the office space, as the applicant was talking about, with what counts as usable there?
I don't know verbatim, but it's typically you do back out the storage areas, hallways, those kind of things. It's usually based on the net, but it's roughly that. We can verify that, but I don't think it's a concern.
What you said is right. Yeah.
And the traffic count or the parking count is typically much lower for the residential than it would be for the office. So they're technically decreasing it, and given the fact we actually lowered the standard for the office, so it should not be a concern.
Thank you. Maybe I missed this in the materials, but did TMP have any comments on this application?
We've received comments back from the fire department, fire marshal, WPCA. I don't recollect seeing responses back.
Okay.
I think they did. Just pulling up my email because I think we got one in late this afternoon. They did sign off on it, so they said it's in compliance with the current city standards in relation to transportation, mobility, and parking, and they take no exception to the project. That was signed by Benjamin Young, senior traffic engineer for TMP.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yep.
Are there other questions for the applicant? Go ahead, Steve.
I just had a quick question, and I don't think I missed it. What is the occupancy and the plan for the remainder of the building?
In terms of the occupant load or number of?
No, what you anticipate who's going to be in that space, or is it rented out, leased now? That's my question.
The balance will be retail spaces on the lower floors. Currently, there's about 25% lease up, but the expectation is it'll increase to 100% within a year or so. And Alexander, I don't know if you.
Yes, I have a few comments to add. First of all, it's 1 through 5 is the office component. The first floor does not have any usable space. It's only dedicated to a lobby and a cafe area that exists for the service in the building. There are no offices or residential or anything else on that floor. Number one. Number two, although I do not have knowledge of remeasuring that we just bought the building last week. The information that we inherited has a loss factor of 22%. So not 15, actually 22. And that is the 2 staircases, 3 elevators, utility rooms, and bathrooms that throughout the office component of the area. So it's approximate to that. The other thing is it's not retail. None of it is retail. It's all office space. There are no retail component in this building.
Right. Yes. Sorry, I misspoke.
I'm just sorry if I might follow up. Do you think you'll be able to fill that office space, or what is the leasing?
We are full of hope of that. Obviously, when I became a developer and I've built multiple buildings throughout the country, I heard an anecdote: to be a developer, you got to be a little bit crazy because most of the people don't believe in what you're looking to do. The office market in Norwalk area specifically is somewhat challenging. We are hoping that because of the location of the building, literally steps from 995 on both directions and proximity to public transportation, we believe that we should be able to approximately 50% of the remaining area, other than these 3 floors that we propose as residential, are vacant today. But we are full of hope that we will be able to lease them. At this point, it's somewhat challenging, but as more and more buildings, Marriott 7 specifically, and other places becoming residential, we are hoping to pick up those tenants. That's our plan.
Is the current law firm, or there was a law firm in there, have they departed?
Now there's at least 2 law firms. There's Gruder, Woods, and actually that's how we ended up knowing about this building, because they represented us for the past at least decade, and actually did a closing when we purchased this last week. Also, there is another law firm on the 3rd floor, which is recently came into the picture right before we purchased the property, and they're staying. Both law firms are staying.
And
for now, anyway.
To get your permits, how long do you anticipate it will take you to do the residential conversion?
We are hoping that we can do it within 12 to 18 months.
Okay, thank you.
As I mentioned before, I'm a seasoned developer. I've made multiple projects, very successful projects, from Florida to New Jersey to Connecticut, New York City. So we are hoping that this will be, although somewhat challenging, but definitely a great improvement and addition to our portfolio and to the city of Norwalk.
Go ahead, Diana.
A couple of quick questions. One, you mentioned that there would be a concierge on premises full-time. Is that 24-hour, 7 full-time, or is that during business hours?
No, we are actually hoping and planning, rather than hoping, we will have a concierge service in one form or another within 24 hours. At night hours, there will be more of a guard type of a service where there will be somebody always present in the building.
Okay, and in terms of the amenities in the building, is the cafeteria currently operating?
The cafeteria is not operating. We are currently negotiating with 2 operators, possible operators that would come in and serve breakfast and lunch only, more of like a coffee service in the morning. And we also providing there is a gym at the property right now on the second floor. We do intend to expand it significantly and make it available to both commercial and residential components of the building.
Both the cafeteria and the fitness center would be open to the tenants as well?
Yes, the cafeteria is actually in the front lobby, easily accessible by anybody who comes into the building.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Good luck with it.
Thank you so much. I think this building is a beautiful building. I was passed it in '95, and unfortunately, it was never really a successful project. I'm only hoping that it's only because the sponsorship of this project was always lacking. I live in Westport for the past 25 years. I do intend to relocate my office from Greenwich, Connecticut, which is a challenging situation. I'm sitting in traffic almost every day. So I'm relocating my office from our own property in Greenwich, but it's still far away from Westport. So I will be on site overseeing the management and operation and also construction of this project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the applicant? Great. Mr. Lasasso, do you have any other items you would like to share?
No, not at this time.
Great. Well, we thank you for your presentation. Is there a motion for this application? Diana, is that a motion to approve? Is that a yes? Oh, yes, sorry, you're muted, so okay. Is there a second? Thank you, Tammy. Yep. Brian or Steve, do you mind pulling up the resolution?
Get out one page, a little bit easier to read.
Oh, thank you. For item 4, I presume that was drafted before seeing what we saw tonight with the indicated items. I'm okay keeping it in because it reaffirms that like what was seen tonight is what should go forward. But if we want to simplify this condition, we could. I'm not sure if anyone has strong feelings about rewriting number 4.
So the workforce housing plan is also a separate document? So
right. Thank you. Yeah. So let's keep it in then.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Are there any other comments or modifications to this resolution? Great. Brian, do you mind calling the roll?
Certainly. Ms. Lingalis?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Lankowski?
Yes.
Mr. Schulman?
Yes.
Ms. Tabashnik?
Yes.
And Mr. Bryce?
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous.
Great. Thank you so much for your presentation tonight. Best of luck with your development.
Thank you.
That is our last application of the evening. We now move to discussion. The first item we have for discussion is 2026-02, regulation text amendment to Article 4 and 9 regarding accessory dwelling units. Brian or Steve, do you mind pulling up and leading that discussion?
Sure. All right, so since our last meeting, we went back and made some edits to what we had proposed to you for the ADU regulation. So this was original language within the regs and then some of the changes that we had proposed. As we were going over the comments, I said, let's start from scratch and hopefully kind of make it read a little bit better than how it's currently written and try to implement some of the changes based on the feedback that we had got. So a lot of this is generally the requirements that apply today. It's just kind of reorganized into three separate categories. So the first is just general requirements that would apply across the board for accessory dwelling units. So these would apply to all properties who are considering putting on an ADU or constructing an ADU on their property. One thing that I don't know if it explicitly needs to be said, but it would apply regardless, is for accessory buildings and the regulations that they don't exceed 60% of the footprint of the principal structure. So it's kind of reiterative, but it's just to kind of spell out that that regulation would also apply to accessory dwelling units. And then the second section would go into height, bulk, and location standards, and then break it up into attached ADUs and detached ADUs. So not much really changing in regard to attached ADUs. One thing that we went and specified was that if you have if your house has for whatever reason is non-conforming in terms of setback or height, we would let you still convert that portion of your house into an ADU since it's not expanding the nonconformity. The house isn't moving closer to a setback line or it's not becoming taller. It's just the interior that is changing. Just kind of being a little bit more clear on that. And then for the detached ADUs, we continued with the language to increase the height by about 5 feet to go to the 20 feet max and 1.5 stories, 1,000 square feet max floor area to match the attached ADUs. And then one change that this was included in your original language was to give a little bit more leniency for detached ADUs on where they can be located on the property. Currently, the requirement is that they have to be located in the rear yard, which is the front setback plus 20 feet. So this would let folks building a detached ADU to put it at the principal structure front setback. So it would remove that additional 20 feet, provided that it's not located between the house and the front property line. So it would allow folks to put the ADU next to the house, but not necessarily in front of their house. And then based on some of the feedback with the permitting procedures, which is broken up into the section 3 here. The first is to allow all ADUs, so this would be both attached and detached, that comply with principal structure setbacks to be permitted over the counter rather than site plan review. And then for public notification, we kind of gave 2 options. I suppose they both could be included, or if you wanted to go in one direction or the other. The first thought was to require applicants who get approved for an ADU, whether it's over the counter or via site plan review, to publish notice in the newspaper that they've received a permit for an ADU. Hopefully, in the not too distant future, legal notices can just be published on city websites, and that would kind of help streamline this process. But just to put it out there publicly that somebody has received the permit for the construction of an ADU. And then the second part would be to continue to allow certain ADUs by site plan review. These would be detached that are using accessory building setbacks. And then detached ADUs going in accessory structures that are non-conforming in whether it's location or height. And then this last highlighted section is another neighbor notification would be, even if it's just a zoning permit application or over the counter, that the applicant would have to notify everyone within 100 feet of the property that they are getting a permit for an ADU or have gotten a permit for an ADU. And while this might not give folks the chance to require or want to review it before you, it would at least notify them that someone is building an ADU within 100 feet of them. And then kind of based on the condominium complex concern, we just added in some language which is similar to what was in the old regulations, which would allow them just to notify the condo association instead of all of the individual condo owners. The thought is if you're next to an 80-unit condo complex and you want to build just one accessory dwelling unit on the property, it might be a significant burden on that person building the ADU to notify 80 individual condo unit owners instead of just notifying the condo association, especially if that condo association has 80 units. Maybe one accessory dwelling unit next door is probably not a big deal. And that was the extent of the changes.
Brian, excuse me, can you go back to the top?
Sure.
No, keep going. Okay. The comment that requires the person to live on the property.
Mm-hmm.
I know we've had a brief conversation about this, but what if the person sells the property to someone who's not going to live on it, or someone dies and whoever inherits it doesn't intend to live on it? Do we have any options there?
We can think of, I mean, our thought was really you could go one way or the other, was either you require it or you don't. I don't know off the top of my head if there's a third option that would allow, if it's somebody who has a lease that they can continue to rent that property as long as it was in effect prior to the sale or the passing of whoever owned it. It might be burdensome on staff to be able to verify that, which is why there's an argument to be made for not requiring the owner occupancy requirement. But yeah, I think going you either say the owner must be on the property or you don't is probably the easiest, two paths.
Do we have any information on whether there are other cities who've done it without owner occupancy and how it's working?
Yeah, so there's definitely cities, even in Connecticut, that don't have owner occupancy requirements. I could reach out to them and see if they have any information on if they know that the property owner resides on the property, or if they're seeing more corporate ownership of single family properties as a result of not requiring that. So we can do some more digging into that.
Yeah, I'd be curious. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Chapin. You go.
No, please, Tammy. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm just curious if we know now, since we put in the new ADU language, we've seen a number of applications come before us. Do we know how many ADUs there are in Norwalk right now? And do we know that the owner is living in one section or another? And I like keeping the language that the owner must reside there. People don't always do what they're supposed to do, but if you don't put it in there, I think you're opening yourself up to just making, rental properties, which there's nothing wrong with rentals, but it's just a different thing. And I think residents would be opposed to it.
Yeah, no, when we originally changed the language, I think there were upwards of 200 ADUs in the city. And we've definitely increased since we put the language in place. I don't think it's been like a dramatic increase, but there's definitely been more interest in doing the ADUs. And part of that could just be that folks don't know about the regulations. And I believe when we originally looked at it that we did check on owner occupancy requirement, and that it was either they were all owner occupied, but again, I could try to rerun the numbers and see just to confirm.
Okay, well, I'm not trying to make you have to do a lot more work than you already do. I was just curious if you knew.
Yeah, my question kind of builds off of that, and I wonder if it's worth looking at duplexes and their ownership structure. I understand duplexes is a different style than having an ADU. But since we currently require the ownership for ADU properties, I was thinking that maybe duplex ownership could be a useful proxy, not exactly the same, but a useful proxy in understanding how much of those are owner occupied.
I think I would only want to be considering changing it if we had, reliable data, either that removing the owner occupancy would significantly increase the amount of ADUs that we get and contribute to housing significantly in that way. And but in cities where it had been done, it hadn't had these negative effects, ideally both. But unless sort of that's super clear, I'd want to keep it.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't have any like hard data available for you right now. I know just off the top of my head, like California, for example, has really loosened up ADU regulations, and I think it's one of the most, if not the most, built form of new housing in the state. But again, whether that's corporate ownership or owner occupied, I'm not sure.
Brian, the next step here, once we agree on the language, is to go to public hearing. Is that correct?
Right. So once we're in a good place with the language, we would do the referral process. So the 35 days to get that out to all of the relevant agencies, and then we hold the public hearing on it. But it sounds like if we're, I don't know if you want more information on the owner occupancy requirement, or if you're comfortable moving forward with that, how it's proposed. I mean, in the applications that have come in, it doesn't seem like it's been a concern as of yet with the owner occupancy requirement. But again, yet when a property owner does happen to die, or if they do sell the property, not necessarily something that we've had to deal with too much, but I could definitely see that being a little bit of a bureaucratic headache.
Well, if an owner dies and the property is sold, then you could add that. I mean, that item D still applies. The owner of the lot must reside on the lot. The new person, assuming it's an individual, and I don't want to assume that because it could be private equity. And I mean, we'll hear what the public has to say on it. But once again, I would leave D in. I would not like this without D.
What if we were to alter a D to add language that if the property is sold or passed on, that it must still be owner occupied?
I don't think you have to do that. I think you could leave it as it is, and that carries forward. It runs with the land, and I think they have to provide annual affidavit that that's still the case.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, I'm satisfied with the language, although I certainly understand if there are other questions that commissioners want to have answered before moving forward. I'm happy either way.
I think, at least you can leave it in for now to start the referral process, because as you indicated, there's going to be a public hearing on it. So you can, if there was like overwhelming push to have that clause removed, I think you could just delete that and vote on it at that point. So I don't think you need to do anything. I don't think you need to have another meeting to discuss it before you advance it to public hearing.
Okay. I had a couple other small language components that Brian, you had highlighted. So one is under 1-I, if you go back up a little bit. I think that is worth keeping in, given that folks may not be reading the entire code as they're bringing the ADU applications to you. So it might be worthwhile to give them that pointer so that they're in compliance before they come into the zoning department.
Got it. Yep.
On item 2B4, I was curious if we could make this consistent with 2A4 and also add height as well, as one of the non-conforming aspects. I don't know if that was left out intentionally or how other commissioners feel about it, but my thought is if the existing accessory building is being converted into a detached ADU, it already exists in its given height and setback area and such. And so if it's just an interior renovation of it, the massing of it's not going to change. It does conflict with 2B2, but I think it's clear that like 2B2 applies to new properties and new accessory structures, whereas 2B4 applies to existing. Am I parsing that correctly?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
What happens
Yeah.
if it's in the flood zone though? So, 1.5 stories. I'm thinking of a garage apartment.
Sure.
And or it gets lifted somehow, and then all of a sudden you have 2.5 stories.
Well, I think our regulations would still count that as 1.5 stories, but it would be different total height because we're counting stories from above the, I forget the term.
Flood zone.
Right. Yeah. So they'll have a little bit of leniency in how they determine stories, but that 20-foot height is still going to apply. So I don't think in the flood zone it would cause any extremely large ADUs from being constructed, since they're still constructed to that 20-foot height max.
Okay. And that wouldn't apply to existing accessory buildings because they would be lifting it, right? And it would no longer be an existing accessory building because they're making that change.
So if they're keeping the footprint, it would be an existing
Okay.
structure. Generally, what we see I would expect folks in the flood zone, if they have a detached garage and they want to put an ADU on top, the easiest way is to keep that garage as is and then to go up over it, and then you would just flood proof the garage portion of it, because now the second floor is already the 2 feet above BFE most likely, and then you're just putting in flood vents and getting flood certs for that existing garage. That'd be my expectation for what you'd see in terms of those kind of conversions.
Okay. Would there need to be any language changes here to support that type of?
I can add in the height. I don't know why I excluded that, but I can add in height.
Is there any concern about adding in height as one of the allowable non-conforming aspects for existing accessory buildings?
And again, you shouldn't see too many existing accessory buildings that are taller, since they've historically always been capped at the 15-foot high max. So
I see.
Most probably aren't non-conforming, but in any cases that they are, I think it's worth including that language.
Okay. And maybe if so, it'd be like pre-1980, right? Or whenever the first...
Pre-1929, maybe.
Yeah, pre-1929. I mean, I guess, yeah, my house would be in that category. I don't know how tall my garage is, but I also do not have plans for an ADU, so. Okay. I wish Richard was able to join us tonight, because I'm curious on his input on the mailing and notice pieces. That was something that he had highlighted at our last meeting.
Yeah, he did send me an email wanting to reiterate his wanting to notify the neighbors. Okay. So I did tell him, and he did say that he read it. Didn't say that he liked it, but he did say that he read it and he saw it. I'm sure he'll have additional comments when we get to the.
Okay. If we, to your earlier point, Steve, if we make the referral, we'll have the public hearing. At that point, if Richard or others on the commission feel that it's insufficient, we can take an action to either modify or reject this language, right?
Well, just curious, if it's a big lot, like say somebody's on a larger than 1 acre lot, is there the possibility that they won't have to notify their neighbors
No,
Could it-
because we
could it
measure
also
from
say
the,
abutting neighbors. I mean, 100 feet, what are people gonna go out with a tape measure and measure it off?
so yeah, we measure from your property lines, the 100 feet. So yeah, I mean, you might have instances where, especially in the CD1L zones, where you might have 300 feet of, each lot might have 300 feet of frontage that you're really only notifying, the neighbors that are directly adjacent to you, anyone across the street, and if there's somebody behind you, that person behind you, which are probably only the people who might be impacted by it. So
So why don't you use the language abutting neighbors?
So just because we're applying it across the board to all properties, so that folks who are in the smaller single family zones, they might have to notify, folks that are 2 houses down. If they have 50 feet of frontage, they might have to notify a few more residents on the street.
And you're trying to encourage notifying more than just the abutting neighbors.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that came up during the rewrite was to go with more of a radius of impact as opposed to just the adjacent property owners.
Okay.
Any other feedback on the ADU regulation here? Great. I know it's in a discussion item. Is this something that at our next meeting we need to take an action on to refer? Or is it something that you guys are able to refer and then we'll schedule for a public hearing?
If you guys think it's ready, we can forward it out.
Any opposition to them sending it out? Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, Steve, do you want to talk through the other text amendments?
Yeah. Just wait till it pops up. There you go. Is that large enough for everybody to see? Want me to blow it up some more? Good. Okay. So we had looked at this similar to the ADUs at your last meeting. There were a couple outstanding questions on some of this. I was doing some pretty poor math the last time, so I've fixed my math. Last rendition of this, you recall, this was related to exempting certain developments from having to provide public realm space, but in lieu of that, they would have to pay a fee to the city to be used kind of for if the city wanted to, upgrade parkland, enhance existing parkland, potentially purchase parkland. So just the example that we showed was a project that you approved at 19 Day Street, and I kind of went back and looked at that again. And this is kind of an overhead view showing the public realm space. And you can see on here again, it's kind of, the two areas are underneath the building. In total, they're about 1,600 square feet. It's not really functional, usable space in this instance. So what we were looking at was a formula where they would potentially buy their public realm out, so they didn't have to provide it, but then that funds come back to the city. The original formula was the top formula, which would result in a payment of a little over $18,000. Staff is recommending bumping that up to $300,000, and that gets it closer to $24,000, which we think is kind of over time, it's, we're not going to see hundreds of these projects, so we're not going to end up with like a massive park built, but it could help and just aid in certain projects and kind of be seed money and kind of supplemental money that might go to improve certain properties.
Steve, I'm sorry, can you go back to the page you were showing previously? Is this something that would be an option for any project or only ones where we felt like it wasn't suited for public realm? Less than 30. Got it.
Yeah. So it's less than 30 and it's only on, sorry, that's popped up on the screen there. 30 and on, where's the street type? Sorry. Downtown streets. So this refers back to the complete streets plan, and the complete streets plan has, each kind of street is defined. So the downtown street would be like Day Street, for example, or Haviland or something like that. So it's not South Main Street, it's not Water Street, it's not West Avenue. So those main streets would still be required to do it, even if they had a development that was less than 30 units, if that makes sense. It's kind of trying to also get to like areas where you want to see that street activation through, you know, like you'd love to have like a deli or a coffee shop or something like that.
Is there a way that we can retain the the option to say, like, yeah, it's a downtown street, it's less than 30 dwelling units, but we really think this area would benefit from public realm, and we would like to see you cut out a few units or change the parking so that there's more of a public realm space. We don't want the money.
Yeah, so there probably are two mechanisms that I can think of, excuse me, top of my head, to do that. One would be special permit, which I wouldn't recommend, which would be kind of onerous for this. Or you could tease it out a little further and say it can be exempt provided that, but it's the provided that's the tricky part, coming up with those, what are the criteria as to why. That's kind of why I went with the downtown street, because they're not on those kind of main areas, and it doesn't prevent somebody from doing it. It's just saying they don't have to do it.
Sure. I mean, I see it in some ways. I feel like a downtown street, I mean, that's the area where people are walking around more, right? Than like, I don't know, Connecticut or Westport Ave, where we would want to have places for people to stop and rest and be in that public space. I can also see the argument that that's where you might want a deli on the first floor or something. To me, the strongest argument is there are these weird spaces, these weird properties, like the one that had that huge staircase, where it just doesn't seem to make sense to have a public realm, and it's nice for us to have this option. I don't know. I wonder if it's something that can be done through ZBA.
Yeah, probably not really, because they're really dealing with like a hardship, and it's not really applicable to this argument or this discussion, really. I can, I mean, with these amendments, there's not like I think the ADU, I think based on your conversations, is more pressing. So I can kind of tease this out a little further and bring it back to you to look at next meeting, if that's helpful.
I mean, are there other people that, am I the only one that sort of had this reaction, or if it's just my thing, I wouldn't push it back.
Yeah, building off what you were saying, I did pull up the map from the Complete Streets Design Guide, because I think I misunderstood downtown street versus Main Street. So downtown streets are like Haviland and now failing for a second example here, like Elizabeth Street, as opposed to the main streets, which are like Washington Street or South Main. And so actually looking at the map, the application we had at our last meeting isn't on a downtown street. So they would not be exempt from this, for example. So I just wanted to build off that for context. But I think I get the spirit of what you're describing of, there may be some areas where we recognize that there is a need for that public space. And yeah, I think the question for me is whether we want to see that through the developer implementing it specifically on their site versus contributing to a fund that then the city can use to find and make space. And yeah, I'm not sure. I see both Harvey and Tammy have their hands up. Harvey, you've had yours up for longer, I believe. Do you have? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's an ambiguity here between point 1 and point 3 where, I mean, I have my guess as to how it would be read, but a residential development within CD4 looks like it has both point 1 and is applicable to both point 1 and point 4. And I can maybe reconcile that in my head, but we might want to make that explicit. Like one is exempt and then the other is, subject to, but can kind of buy out of it. So could make that explicit.
So you're saying this point here versus this point
Yeah, so for in CD4, for a small development, are they exempt or do they have to buy out?
Yeah, so Steve, you just put the range in, so it'd just be containing between
Exactly, yes.
three would just say containing between 11 and
And
29 units.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
That's fine. Yeah, I got a PDF open, so I can't edit it right now, but I got you. Yeah.
Tammy?
Yeah, thanks. I think, Harvey, that was good catch. I'm kind of confused isn't really the right word, but what are we trying to accomplish here? We're going to penalize a developer for not having public realm space because, they're making their building too big, let's just say for ease. But what do we want, and why should, the city's going to hold some funds aside, and then what are they going to do with it? Do we want green space? Do we want plantings? I think we need to have some suggestion of what we're going to do with that fine money so that maybe the developer could work it in. That this building here on Day Street he used up so much of his land that there's no green space there really. But so what's our goal? I'm not sure that this gives a sense.
So this green space they provided doesn't really, whether it actually would function as actual green space or not, it's kind of debatable. I don't think it really.
No, it's absurd, really. I mean,
yeah. So, but it's a requirement that they provide it right now. So they have to give us public realm. In addition to, they can only build on a certain percent of the lot, which includes the parking and the structures. So this would be, all right, in these kind of instances, it really doesn't make sense for them to put in the public realm space. So the city gets some funds. So like Ryan Park, at least on this project, Ryan Park is, on the other side of the street. So maybe they could put some improvements into Ryan Park with the funds that they get out of this kind of project.
Who's the they and who gets to decide? Is it P&Z or somebody else?
No, it would go, so more than likely it would probably be Rexham Park. So that highlighted downtown public spaces fund would get set up. The money will go in there. That could get accessed more than likely by Rexham Park, or maybe somebody else had a project. Maybe TMP had a project they were working on as part of a street improvement, and this could fit in with like an expanded sidewalk area or something else they wanted to amenities along a sidewalk or something like that. But it has to go. Go ahead, Tammy. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I would just, that's, good ideas. And I would like to see that defined a little bit better rather than just, they're going to pay a penalty and wherever it might go into some downtown public space fund. But I think that needs to be defined who gets access to that fund. Because with the Arts Commission that we just heard from, would they want those funds? And is that the goal? I'm not saying that it isn't, but, I think we need to know what it's for.
So I think, well, the second part after that, I think kind of indicates where it has to go. So it says utilize solely for the acquisition, design, and improvement of public parks and open spaces within the census block.
Okay, I guess that's good. Thank you, Steve.
Can I ask a question about Day Street real quick? I remember, I think I voted against it for a few different reasons, but would we have had the option in looking at this to say that's not enough public realm, or the way you've set up the public realm under the building, that's not good enough? It might meet the measurement requirements, but it's not what we're looking for. Make it better, make it bigger.
Yeah, you could make a finding on something like that to say, wait a minute, this, because there's a definition of public realm. So you would point back to that definition and say, this, in our opinion, is not in keeping with what the intent of the regulation is and not consistent with what the definition reads.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
A question for you, Steve, about the Downtown Public Spaces Fund. Is that something that we would also need Common Council to define in some manner? Like, is it something that needs to be defined by an ordinance as well?
I'm not positive. That may exist now.
Okay.
It maybe only exist in paper, but I can confirm that pretty easily.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be helpful, and maybe to Tammy's earlier point, can give a little bit more clarity as to what the fund is if it already exists and like how folks can access it and such.
Yep.
Are there any other comments or discussion on this item? Great. I think we can keep moving if you're good with that, Steve.
Yep, sure. And the next one had to do with, and I added this yellow section in because this was kind of like in my mind, still kind of up in the air. Dealing with this kind actually dovetails nicely with your potential POCD amendment about the arts and cultural plan. Was one of the recommendations in the plan was trying to come up with ways to incentivize more artist live work units. So what we did was put an amendment in that if you put in an artist live work unit, that counts as 2 workforce units. And then the question similar to your ADU discussion is, how do you kind of verify who's in there? So that's why I put the language in about an annual affidavit. You know, it is cumbersome and easy to get lost in the shuffle of annual requirements of someone submitting an affidavit, but I can't think of another way in which it would get verified on an annual basis, because you don't want somebody to say, "Oh, I love this great loft space," and them not be the artist, because that kind of defeats the purpose at that point. So I put that in there, just kind of wanted to get your temperature on that.
I see this is in the section related to workforce housing unit. Would this clause that's highlighted apply to all artist live work units, or just those that are workforce housing?
Just those that are workforce, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm jumping too much. This was the band sign. I'm happy to go. I didn't make any changes to this. I don't think there were any comments from last time. This is just dealing with location of band signs and allowing band signs on canopies at gas stations. Next one, again, no changes here, was the definition of dormer, just revising it, making it a little more consistent. New definition, landscape nursery. I think we made some changes to this last time. It was initially proposed as a potential special permit use in the CD3 zone. You had felt that wasn't appropriate, so we removed that. And I think that was the only change there, plus some clerical issues that we discovered.
I also saw that you removed it from CD3W, so thank you.
Yes, yeah. So it's just putting it in where it would fit in the table.
Yep.
Patios and porches we discussed. We had a couple questions on that, but there were no proposed changes out of those. Same thing with stoop. Definition of wet bar. We changed the under counter refrigerator versus mini fridge. And the last one was on here was a question mark related to the CD3 zone and allowing really dealing with village districts. And that had to do with when we have like a situation where you might have a building that's getting renovated or a small addition, but it otherwise wouldn't rise to the level of a site plan application for the commission, but it's in a village district and triggers design review. This would give the commission the authority to require the design review, but not require the applicant to go through all the hoops of a full site plan application, but authorizing the design review, which I think we would iterate, I should reiterate to the third-party reviewer that this is kind of hoping for more of the expedited review, smaller scale project, but making sure that what's being designed is consistent with the design guidelines for that applicable village district. And I had run through a couple of how do we verify that and how do we make it, consistent with the village district enabling legislation as well as the commission's normal practices. And I work with Corporation Counsel, and we have we'll just put a separate form together that would have to get filed and then get a certificate filed in the land records post commission approval, which I think rectifies that piece.
Great.
So no questions there. I think that's the last one. So the only thing I think outstanding is if you want me to kind of look at this language on, sorry, almost there, on number 3 under 4.319 again, and see if you want me to tease that out a little bit further to look at, giving it a little more clarity on when they would be exempt or could pay versus required. I'm happy to think that through a little more if you'd like.
Okay. Anna, I know you had raised that a little bit earlier. Are there particular components you'd like to tease out? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm not sure. I'm fine. I like the downtown public spaces fund and the definition for it within the census block. I'm not sure if that's too narrow or not, but yeah, my only concern is that I don't want it to just be that every application we get, they're just choosing to pay the fee and we don't get the, sort of to Tammy's point, if we do want public realm in these spaces, then we should make there be public realm in these spaces unless we truly think that it doesn't work for the property. So that's where I'm stuck. But
yeah, let me take I think in 2 weeks I can come up with something that give it some,
if maybe we think it's no longer so important, maybe we've got enough public realm, or it's less important than it used to be, and it's more important that we have funding for our existing parks, then that sort of changes the calculus for me, and then it makes sense to give folks kind of an option. I don't know.
I also think it's not necessarily, if a lot of people are taking advantage of it, that means you're just seeing a lot more 29 unit and less developments, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, because they're more on the smaller side. So if it's encouraging more of those, then maybe that's a fair alternative.
Or even encouraging the less than 10 if we exempt them from public realm.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
I went over to the new building lot, the cemetery, the mill pond, and had a tour and was looking very carefully at the public realm space in the back. And in that situation, it's kind of nice because, there's a view of the pond, sort of. And so there, I think the public realm works. But on this one on Day Street and the one over that we talked about at our last meeting, those don't really, to me, lend themselves to public realm. The back of the building on Day Street was a parking lot. That to me isn't public realm. And so I don't know if it is site specific, but in a way it sort of has to be site specific. If it's by the water, then you want public realm. If it has a view of some sort, you want public realm. But a square apartment building in a parking lot, why would anybody, the public realm is kind of lost on me there.
Yeah, plus the park is just one side of the street away. So
right.
The idea is that there is your park.
Yep.
Just like the other one had the Carl Freese Park on the river. That's where people would kind of naturally want to congregate for open space and trees.
Yeah, let me, I just got the tricky thing from the regulation crafting standpoint with this is I don't think a special permit's a good idea because that just is cumbersome and adds, because you're not requiring a special permit for the project. So why would you do a special permit just so they didn't have to do public realm? So it's coming up with enough language to say, all right, they're exempt from providing the public realm, but still have to pay the fee, provided that the site meets these 5 criteria or these metrics that it's giving them certainty and not giving you, unfortunately, you don't have discretion on that kind of thing. It would be like, all right, if it meets these things, they don't have to do the public realm, but have to give us the fee instead.
Sure. Maybe distance to a park might be a
Yeah,
good
I was thinking the same
attribute.
thing.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Thank you,
And
Steve.
then
Yeah.
that money could go to enhance that park.
Right. That's the idea with the census piece of it. Because otherwise, if it just goes into the general fund, then who knows, that like the developer on Day Street might pay $25,000, but then the city could use it up at Cranberry Park, which is not really fair to the residents who are in that census block with the new development.
Sure.
Are there situations, I'm not super familiar with census tracts. Are there situations where the boundaries of the census block or census tract like wouldn't encompass the closest park to the property?
Potentially. I can't think of another way to write that.
Do it.
I mean, I could think about that a little bit more, but without that, there's definitely no way to do it. But I can think about that a little
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
I think this is one where I just like be really interested in hearing, always interested in hearing, but definitely interested in hearing from the community, the residents, developers, and businesses, their thoughts on how this might help or hurt stuff.
Great. Well, thanks, Steve, for working on some edits on this, and look forward to seeing it at our next meeting.
Sure.
Next up is acceptance of the minutes for our January 7th meeting. Are there any modifications or changes needed for these minutes? I did note a few typos, Diana, just on the word "the," I think a couple of times. So I'll just call that out briefly, but otherwise it looked good to me. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Great, and Tammy seconded. We'll do this with a show of hands. All those in favor? All right, all those abstaining?
I
All
believe
right,
I
all
left
those-
early.
I think so, yeah. And all those opposed? Great. Diana, did you vote on this one, on the minutes?
Yes.
Oh, in favor. Okay, great. So that passes with one abstention. Comments of the director?
I should have done my PSA at the beginning of the meeting again about the legal notices after the fact, because I got 3 emails in the last 3 days about scam billings, and somebody said they almost paid, and it was $13,000. I was like, wow, that's quite a hefty fee. So we're going to continue to work to get the message out about that, but it's pretty persistent and pretty effective scam they're running there.
Is that something worth putting out through like the city's social media channels or anything like that to communicate?
Yep. Yeah,
Maybe as an
police
email
did that.
footer?
Yeah, we'll work with Jen McMurray on that. And police had done that a couple of weeks ago. They had sent out an announcement about that because we've been reporting it to the police, and I don't know what they're able to do with that because it's not just a Norwalk thing. It's all over Connecticut because I see the Connecticut planners bringing it up a lot. So they're just going after people. I think one thing we talked about internally was I think they're getting the people's email addresses from the application. So at some point, we're going to try to figure out a way to not have the applicant's email show up publicly. So they can't, that's where they're getting the information from. So we're trying to move away from that.
I see.
One other item is what we're trying to do. We had as part of our citation fine process, we had one individual appeal one of our fines, and we ended up settling with them. The court is requiring that the settlement get agreed to, and speaking with Corporation Counsel, they want the commission to bless it before they sign off on it. So what I was thinking we could do, we don't need everybody there, but as many people can come is great, is to do a special meeting at your February 4th meeting at 5:30 to just deal with the settlement of the litigation. Matt Sapienza from the law department said he's going to put a quick little memo together. We can act on that at 5:30. I don't think it's going to take more than 15, 20 minutes. You'll go into executive session, discuss it, come out, vote. We'd close that meeting, and then at 6 o'clock, open up the regular meeting. We have the Manresa North Woods application on that night, and I anticipate there'll be a lot of public interest. So we're trying to keep that agenda pretty light as much as we can.
Appreciate that. Great. Are there any comments of commissioners?
I hate to be
Go
broken.
ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Anna. I was rude. I didn't.
3, so. Right ahead.
This is Harborside again. It doesn't appear to me that they've replaced all the trees that were taken down on Water Street.
Correct. Yeah. And last time we brought that to the attention of Public Works, who Paul Sotnick works with the tree committee, and they are aware of it. It was just, they couldn't get to it last fall. So we're March timeframe, we'll be starting to get planting season again. So that will be something we'll hammer home to them to try to get them to complete.
Thank you, Steve.
Sure.
Sorry. So first one is just a follow-up, whether we have anything on the Mill Pond public access for the part that's owned by the city that would need sign off from DEEP. I think I brought it up a couple meetings ago. What are the next steps with that?
So we had applied for, you're talking about the One Cemetery Street.
Yeah, the extra.
Yeah, we applied for a trails grant through DEEP last time around and did not receive funding. The problem is not a problem. It's a good problem. The city is also pursuing that grant for other applications. So we don't get both. So that the other ones receive priority funding. So we'll keep looking. Amelia in our office is working on street ends funding projects, try to get through the harbor study that was just completed. So we're looking at different funding mechanisms and see if there's something that's applicable to that as well. So it's more than likely it's just when we can get grant funding to do it. We could also look at capital funds, but I don't know how that'll go over in terms of priority or a need, but I think the grant is a way to go. It's just a matter of when we can get, when we're successful at getting a grant for that.
Do you have a sense of how much money in addition to the 25K would be needed for this type of thing? I thought the main barrier was whether the environmental people would even let us build anything over there.
No, and I don't even think that's a barrier. That was, there was one person at DEEP that used to do the plan reviews that we used to send up as part of the CAM applications who said that, but we talked to the trail folks and they said, no, they do that all the time. It's not an issue. So that, I don't think that's a realistic hurdle. If you could do me a favor and just email me that question, I'm out tomorrow, but I have the grant application on my file, and I imagine the price has gone up since the last time I submitted the grant application, but it was significantly more than the 25,000 because we had Gary Wetmore, who does all the dock replacements and pilings. We asked him to help us with the pricing. He gave us a kind of rough idea on a quote, so we have a sense of what that would be.
Okay, thank you. My second one is I would like, and I don't know, obviously if other folks agree, I would like there to be a requirement with the workforce housing units that they have to follow the same application process as the market rate units. Obviously, there are additional things they need to collect for the income verification, but that the process has to be equitable, including how they are advertised, that information about it is available on the website. If there's an online application for one, there should be one for the other. And that if the property has a website, that it has to be clear that there are workforce housing units in the building and how to apply for them. And what I'm wondering is, let's just assume that people agree with me because that's the world I like to live in. Where could we build would that be in the zoning regulation or in that standard template workforce housing plan that everybody uses?
I think it's both.
It's both.
And I think what I can do is have Michelle look at the existing requirements in the workforce housing regulations to see if any of that is addressed now, and maybe it's not being followed up on, or maybe it's not being enforced. I could check that. And if it's not specifically stated, we'd look to see if that was something you'd need to amend your regulations to require. And then I think maybe it's just a sense of we'd have to just audit them and check up on them all the time. You know, it's like, all right, once a year, we're looking at your website, because we do, you know, the annual reporting notice just went out like a month ago. So that could be something that gets looked at and verified at that point in time too.
I think once people build it a certain way, they're unlikely to like completely change it. I do remember from looking at the boilerplate plan that it included things about equity in advertising, more about like print, that you have to like put something in the classified ads that there's workforce housing available, or you have to, you know, announce that it's available at the same time to everybody, that type of fair housing thing. And obviously equity in the building amenities and fixtures and stuff, but I didn't see anything really touching on this. So I'll be interested to see what Amelia can find out.
Yeah, I'm going to guess a lot of that was drafted before we were such a virtual age, you know, is probably my guess.
Yeah.
If I could build off your number 2, and hopefully I'm not stealing from your number 3 item here. I recall a few weeks ago you had raised about for buildings that have amenity or key fob or similar types of fees, thinking about how those fees are applied to those who are in affordable units or in workforce housing. I don't know the right language there, but I wonder if that could be incorporated in the same plans.
That would be great.
When I went to the Mill Pond building, I also went over to the Scribe and got a tour with the salespeople. I asked them about the affordable units. They absolutely acknowledged, yes, we have affordable. The person at the Mill Pond said, yes, one of those units is already occupied. The other person at the Scribe knew all about it, you know, showed me all the amenities. And of course, they're open to everybody. I mean, these buildings, though, they do charge extra for garbage. They charge extra for parking. You know, they've got their add-ons. But anyway, the salespeople that I encountered were very much aware. It's not saying somewhere, but at least the people that I spoke to definitely were on the
sales. Yeah, and that's great to hear, and that's been my experience as well. But that's not exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking like, because that's more like if you go in person, you're having a conversation with somebody in a tour. I'm talking about somebody who's looking for an apartment, who's Googling around. You go to these websites. I mean, I'm telling you because I've looked at like 80 of them in the last year trying to help people, and it's not clear. Some of them it's very clear. Others of them don't have anything about workforce housing on their websites, or it says email for information, then you never hear anything back. They require you to fill out a paper form and mail it in, whereas other people can apply online. It's a whole shebang. And while I think we've done well as a larger community and state in making sure that the amenities are available to everybody, my concern is less about the amenities being available, right? That's like, we've been good at that for a while, I think. It's these add-on fees. I wasn't even thinking, but that wasn't my number 3, Chapin, but it is, it makes something that's supposed to be affordable, and we know it's really about a targeted income tier. It really bumps it up, that combination of fees and things. So, but my number 3 was, I was recently in a meeting about affordable housing, incentivizing, and folks were talking about how cities really need to, if they're going to do the set aside version of affordable housing like we do for workforce, that the city needs to subsidize it in a certain way so that the developers don't just jack up the market rate to cover for the affordable. And I think we all know that. And I think in Norwalk, we're not doing tax abatements for affordable housing right now. We talked about that. We do it with density bonuses and things like that. So what I was wondering is there a way to know or find out with even just a little bit of possible certainty whether in Norwalk the market rates are in fact being jacked up to compensate, or if they're not, if they're, you know, on par with the other market rates in the area that don't have affordable units? Is there any way to tease that out?
An interesting
Well,
question.
Like a pulse check.
That's always been like the concern with inclusionary zoning, is that that's what happens, is that the market rate ends up subsidizing the affordable units. But I don't know. And it's a good question.
Like, how would you know if that was happening or if that wasn't happening?
I think even if it wasn't happening, they're going to tell you it's happening. Even
Who's
if it
gonna
wasn't
tell you?
the developers.
Even if
would
it
tell you
wasn't,
that's a fact.
developers would tell you, right? But I mean, like, you know, as much as I'm sure they're trustworthy, I wouldn't necessarily ask them. I'm wondering if there's, sorry, it's late, but a way to look at prices. You know, we did the whole affordable housing study, and they looked at the prices for different levels of apartments, and like, what is the average apartment price for a 1-bedroom in a building that doesn't have any affordable units versus one that has the set asides, if you were to adjust for the newness of the property?
We could probably look at the small, like the 9 or less developments that didn't have to provide one. But again, it's not apples to apples because those are smaller developments, whereas you're trying to compare to like a large scale.
And the other part of that is, as you said, that older developments that weren't required to have workforce units are older units, unless, I mean, we'd have to find one that went through a more recent like upgrade. They redid the outside, redid the inside. That would be more of a comp.
I just wonder if there's some sort of industry, like the traffic people have all these industry standards for like, we know how to measure this and we take into account this and that. And it was the afternoon, but school wasn't in session. And I'm wondering if there's any sort of industry standard to tease out whether the prices are being inflated or not. And I'm not necessarily expecting you to have those answers, but it's something that's been coming into my head.
And the only thing that's coming to mind, related to that is the price fixing allegations, right, against some of the rent, the organizations that help landlords figure out rent prices, right? Like they probably have that data, but I know that like New York State in particular is taking action against those, and I don't know that they would be keen on sharing such data sources with us.
I think what complicates it a lot is the high demand and the low vacancy. I think that's probably the biggest driver of the cost. So, I mean, I think if there was more availability in the market, you'd probably have better data to look at for that. I think because it's just such a high demand and low vacancy, everything's going to be inflated
is sort of
anyway.
Obscured by that.
Yeah.
Got it.
But it's an interesting number. I don't know how we would pull that out, but it's interesting.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you. That's all.
Sure.
Great. Any other comments of commissioners? The last thing I had real quick was on the capital budget. So I know we're getting close to that season. Steve or Brian, do you know when we'll have that on our agenda, the referral to us? And
I will follow up with, I'm blanking on
Lola.
Yeah, in the financing department. I haven't heard anything from them as far as getting binders together, but I'll follow up.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm getting worried it's going to be like, oh, we need this. What's your thoughts next week?
Yep. That's part of why I wanted to raise it because it's last meeting in January. I feel like that's usually when it's on our our radar.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, didn't we change the format for the way we receive the capital budget information last year? We wrote something up.
Yep.
So.
All right. Any other commissioner comments? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? Great. Thank you, Anna. Great. Have a great night, everyone.
Okay, good night.